Tonight here, the emotional sentencing for a mother and author convicted of murdering her husband, poisoning him with fentanyl, and then writing a children's book about grief after his death. Her son telling the judge, quote, "I want her to go to prison forever," and what the judge decided.
And the bottom line is this. Kouri Richins was convicted unanimously and beyond a reasonable doubt of attempting to murder Eric Richins, her husband, and the father of their 3 children. And then, having failed in her first effort of spending the next 17 days, not changing course, but doubling down, preparing to try again, and ultimately completing the act through the administration of poison. And for what? Money. All for pecuniary gain.
His 3 boys are in therapy. They wrote statements to a judge saying they are afraid. Not afraid of strangers. Not afraid of the dark. Afraid of their own mother. And the woman those boys are afraid of stood in a courtroom on their father's birthday and told them she is coming home. That she will fight until she gets back to them.
I did not just walk out of your lives one day to never return.
Her name is Kouri Richins. And what happened in that courtroom on May 13th, 2026 is something I have not been able to stop thinking about. If you are new to Crime Files, subscribe right now, hit the bell icon, and like this video. We cover cases like this one all the way through, and this chapter of the Kouri Richins story is one you do not want to miss. Now let's get into it. May 13th was not a random date. It was Eric Richins' birthday. He would have turned 44 years old that day. Instead, his killer stood in a Park City courtroom in jail clothes, fully restrained, and was told she would never be a free woman again. And the way that day unfolded, the people who broke down, the things that were said, and what Kouri herself chose to do when she finally opened her mouth for the first time since this whole case began, all of it needs to be told, because this was not just a sentencing. It was a reckoning. The hearing started at 9:30 in the morning. The courtroom was packed. Eric's family was there. Kouri's family was there. The attorneys were there. And Kouri sat at the defense table, quiet, watching, as the people whose lives she destroyed stood up one by one and told the judge exactly what she had taken from them. Eric's father, Gene Richins, went first. And I want you to picture this man for a second. A father who raised a son, watched that son build a business from the ground up, watched him become a devoted dad, a soccer coach, a man who showed up for everyone around him, and then watched that son get poisoned to death in his own bed by the woman he trusted most. Gene stood in front of that judge and said Eric was a light, not just to his 3 boys, but to every child he ever coached, every person he ever knew. He said that Eric's soccer team still breaks a huddle the same way to this day. 1, 2, 3, Eric. That is how deeply this man was loved. And Gene looked that judge in the eye and said his son's life was taken through calculated, intentional actions motivated by greed, control, and a desire for a different life with someone else. He asked for life without parole. He said he needed those boys to never have to be afraid again. Then came Eric's sister, Kouri Richins Benson. This is the woman Kouri punched in the face the morning after Eric died, when Katie showed up to tell her she was a trustee of Eric's estate, and that Kouri had no legal right to drill open his safe. That was 4 years ago. And Katie stood in front of that same judge and spoke through tears about everything that had happened since. She said that after Eric died, Kouri cut those 3 boys off from their father's entire family for 15 months. 15 months. These children lost their father, and then lost the people who loved their father most, all at the same time. Katie said the boys are afraid, not of strangers, of their own mother. She begged the judge not to leave those boys spending the rest of their childhoods, wondering if Kouri would one day show up and take them. And then she said something that stopped that courtroom cold. She said those boys are not bargaining chips. They are not cash cows. And they are not props for some twisted children's book about grief and loss. That line landed like a freight train, and it was supposed to. The boys' own statements came next, but they did not read them themselves. Their counselors read them on their behalf.
Her to go to prison forever. If she got out, I would be so scared.
Because these children are still in therapy, still healing from something no child should ever have to go through. And what those statements said, that they are afraid of their own mother, that they do not want contact with her. That tells you more about the damage Kouri Richins has done than any piece of evidence presented at trial. She did not just take their father. She became someone her own children are frightened of. The 3 boys are now being raised by Katie and her husband Clint Benson, Eric's family, the very people Kouri spent years trying to push out of the picture. Then Brad Bloodworth stood up, the chief prosecutor, the man who spent 3 weeks in front of that jury methodically dismantling every layer of Kouri's story. At sentencing, he was just as direct. He told the judge that a person like Kouri Richins should never again walk freely among the rest of us, that her own children should never have to worry about the day they might encounter her. He asked for life without parole, and there was not a single moment of hesitation in how he said it. Kouri's side had their time, too. Her mother, Lisa, wrote a letter that was read aloud in court, asking the judge for mercy. She described her daughter as a source of calm and connection. She said Kouri supported therapy for her boys. She said Kouri was grieving the loss of the man she loved. Her brother Ronnie read his own letter, telling Kouri about everything she had missed since being locked up. Kouri reportedly broke down crying during that moment, and outside the courthouse afterward, her friend Greg Hall said her side of the family is hurting deeply, that many of them still believe she is innocent, and that she is a wonderful, good human being. I am not going to dismiss any of that completely, because grief does not follow logic, and people who love someone will hold on to that love even when the evidence is overwhelming. But here is what I keep coming back to. The jury heard 42 witnesses. They heard the text messages between Kouri and her boyfriend where she wrote that life would be so perfect if Eric could just go away. They heard about the phone records, the deleted messages, the 15-minute gap between when Kouri's phone went active and when she finally called 911. They heard Carmen Lauber testify about purchasing fentanyl at a gas station because Kouri asked for the Michael Jackson stuff. They heard Josh Grossman cry on the stand as his private text messages with Kouri were read out loud to a packed courtroom. They heard all of it, and they came back with a guilty verdict in under 3 hours. Under 3 hours. For a case that took 3 weeks to present. Now here is a part of the sentencing that I genuinely cannot stop thinking about, because Kouri Richins finally spoke. For the first time since this entire case began, she opened her mouth in that courtroom and said something publicly, and she chose to spend almost every single minute of her statement addressing her boys. She said she did not abandon them. She said she did not just walk out of their lives one day and disappear. She told them she loves them and always will. She asked them not to give up on her. She told them she is coming home. Not today, not this year, but that she will fight her way back to them. She vowed to appeal. She said the justice system will eventually get this right, even if this particular courtroom could not manage it. And then she said something that I had to read twice to make sure I understood it correctly. She told her boys that she and their father had hidden things from each other, that they had both fallen in love with others. She talked about how marriage is hard, how it takes work, how it takes big love and deep love. She told her boys not to keep secrets from their future spouses. She told them to always put their partners first. She was giving her children marriage advice at her sentencing for murdering their father. She also said this, and I want you to really hear it. She told those boys never to apologize for something they did not do, never to admit to something they did not feel, and never to beg for mercy for something they did not do. Never beg for mercy for something you did not do. She also looked at that courtroom and said God did not put her in this world to take a life. She said her conviction is completely wrong. She said the idea that she murdered Eric is an absolute lie. And she said she is coming home. Judge Richard Mrazek listened to all of it, every statement from every person in that room. And then he spoke. He said that Kouri Richins was convicted unanimously and beyond a reasonable doubt of attempting to murder Eric Richins on Valentine's Day 2022. And then, having failed, spending the next 17 days not turning back, not stopping, not reconsidering, but doubling down, preparing to try again, and ultimately completing the act through poison. He said that a person convicted of those things is simply too dangerous to ever be free. Life in prison, no parole, and all the additional sentences for attempted murder, insurance fraud, and forgery run consecutively. She cannot earn time on one while serving another. The time stacks. She is going to die inside the Utah State Prison. At 2:22 in the afternoon on May 13th, 2026, Eric Richins' birthday, Kouri Richins was transferred directly from Summit County Jail into state custody. She is at Utah State Prison right now. But this case is still not completely closed. There is a restitution hearing scheduled for July 31st, 2026. Prosecutors want Kouri to repay $1.4 million in life insurance money she collected after Eric's death, and another $1.4 million in legal defense costs. Whether she actually pays any of it is another story entirely. She has no assets and will likely be earning cent per hour in prison, but the state wants it on record. She also still faces a separate criminal case with 26 felony charges, including mortgage fraud, money laundering, and a pattern of unlawful activity. That case has not gone to trial yet. And in civil court, Eric's family continues to fight under Utah's Slayer statute, which bars a killer from inheriting anything from the person they murdered. Kouri had actually filed a civil lawsuit against Eric's estate before her arrest, claiming she was owed $3.6 million. That case is still being litigated. After the hearing, Eric's sister Amy stepped outside the courthouse and said something I thought was quietly beautiful. She said that today, they invite everyone to remember Eric by performing a kind act for a stranger. She said the world lost a wonderful man, and it will take all of us to carry his kindness forward. That is who Eric Richins was. A man so full of goodness that even after 4 years of legal battles, even after sitting through a murder trial, even after watching the woman who killed their brother stand up in that courtroom and still deny everything, his family's first instinct was to ask people to be kind to strangers in his name. So here's what I want to leave you with, because I think it is the most important part of this entire story. Kouri Richins stood in that courtroom on her dead husband's birthday, fully restrained, and told her children she is coming home. She told them the justice system will get it right. She told them never to beg for mercy for something they did not do, and she did all of it without a single moment of remorse, without one word of acknowledgement for what Eric's family has been through. She even appeared to smirk and roll her eyes while Eric's sister gave her victim impact statement, which brings me to the questions I keep sitting with, and I think you should sit with them too. What does it take to maintain a performance that convincing for that long, through an arrest, through years in jail, through a full murder trial, and all the way into a sentencing hearing? Is that something a person builds over time, or is it just who they are? When Kouri sat across from those morning TV hosts and talked about grief and healing and her boys, was any part of that genuine, or was it strategy from the very first word? And those 3 boys, who are real children, growing up in the wreckage of all of this, when they're old enough to read everything, to watch every interview, to understand exactly what happened in their home the night their father died, what do they do with that? How do you rebuild a life knowing that the person who was supposed to protect you chose greed over everything, including you? I do not have clean answers, but I think those questions are worth sitting with, because this case is about more than Kouri Richins. It is about how easy it is to be fooled by someone who has spent their whole life learning how to look like exactly what you need them to be. If this video hit you the way this case hit me, please like it right now, subscribe to Crime Files, and click the bell icon so you never miss when we drop a new one. We go deep on every single case. Eric Richins deserved better. His boys deserve better. And the very least we can do is make sure his story is told the right way. I will see you in the next video.